Big start off. Not bad. Huh. So these are all interesting choices. Actually, the Merc Leader's the least interesting. So I like the Molten Giant. The problem with playing a Mage is that if you're getting your ass kicked and you're low on health, Molten Giant's really not going to help you very much unless you can like Molten Giant Flame Strike the same turn. It is possible. Generally, Spellbinder can actually be pretty strong, especially like versus Priests. Priest is pretty common in Arena. Also against Fireball and Poly and Humility and anything that's not a battle cry, essentially, that's going to hurt one of your guys can be hit on a 1-3 instead, which is really strong. I like the Molten Giant as a creature, but I like it really less in a Mage deck because if I'm playing well, then I should be ahead and I shouldn't need to play the Molten Giant. So I think I'm actually going to Spellbinder. I'm not really a fan of secrets in general. The only two secrets I think are really any good are, well, the main one I think is good at all is Counterspell, because that can really save you. Can counterspell Flame Strike, counterspell Mind Control. Well, I was saying Mage. Explosive Shot is really good. Snake Trap is only really situationally good if you've got a Buzzard out, so then you draw 3 cards, or if you have a a Ghoul or something like that, or Beast kind of things, Hyena. So that can be situationally good. For the most part, a lot of secrets aren't very good, though. That's just what I was saying kind of in general. Like, most of the Paladin secrets aren't very good. And a lot of the Mage spells secrets aren't very good either. I'd much rather have a creature most of the time. However, we're probably going to play with Spellbinder. It is our first card, so it can end up being kind of build around it and kind of know we've got this to kind of save some kind of big creature. So against a Priest, I could play, if I get a Legendary or something, or a big card later with Spellbinder followed by it. So I'm kind of leaning towards Spellbinder here. I don't like being low on health as a Mage, because if you get low, you can't always come back, you can't heal or anything. So we'll pick up Spellbinder here. So all good cards, sort of. They have usefulness. Venture Code is one of my favorite, though. It's really difficult to get off the board. It's turn 5. If you can play it turn 5, it's basically a huge pain in the ass to kill. There's certain ways around it, but for the most part, this is a very strong card to deal with. Wolf Rider is basically a 3-cost spell most of the time. Generally, it's going to do 3 damage and then it's going to die. That's why I consider it sort of a spell. It's not quite like a spell because it can't pass taunt, and it can possibly live to attack longer. But I like it a lot. But at this point, Venture Code is really strong. Snapjaw's okay. It's good situationally, good for killing totems and things. But in a Mage deck, it's not very strong. It's definitely stronger, much stronger in like a Priest deck. But overall, it's not a super strong card. So pick up Venture Co. Great 2 first starting cards. So we actually have a tough choice here. I really like Cone of Cold. Spellbreaker is also incredible. It's kind of a tough choice. I like Spellbreaker a lot. I'm probably going to pick Spellbreaker. There's probably a better chance we'll get a Cone of Cold later than we go to Spellbreaker. And we always can get other AoE. There's other options. Flame Strike and Blizzard could come. We could also get another Cone of Cold. So we'll go ahead and pick Spellbreaker. I like Cone of Cold a lot, but Cone of Cold synergizes well with like Flame Strike and things, or other AoEs. Hey girl. So we'll go Spellbreaker. So 2 good choices. Dragonhawk's not good in a Mage deck. It can be good in Hunter decks, can be good in Paladin decks if you've got Kings and things, or the Beastmaster card, or any number of things that get this above 1 health and makes the Wind Fury useful. Most of the time the Wind Fury is not useful because it doesn't live long enough to hit something twice. I like Water Elemental. I think I like Sorcerer's Apprentice better. At the end of the day, stats only, this is a 3-2 for 2, which is strong and gives me some early game. 3/6 for 4 isn't bad. I think I'd rather it be a 4/5 or a 5/4, so you basically lose one of the stats somewhere else, move it around. The huge benefit to this is freezing a character. So you could suicide this into something to stop it from hitting you the next turn. You can also hit the enemy hero. They've got weapons to stop them from hitting you as well. However, I'd rather have the early game, because if this dies straight off the board, then it doesn't really do much for you. So we'll try to get some early game advantage with Sorcerer's Apprentice. Nightblade's not a very good card. Magma Rage is also not a very good card. Frostbolt's our easy choice. Frostbolt's very, very strong. So a couple choices here. Rifleman's an okay card. It's basically double. So this card is double the Archer for 3 times the cost. So the Archer is a 1/1, deals 1 damage. This is a 2/2, deals 1 damage. So it's actually essentially not even double, and it costs 3 times the cost. So not a huge fan of that card. I feel like it probably should be a 2/3, deal 1 damage, to make it even remotely useful. These other cards are much more useful. Booty Bay Bodyguard can be good. I think as a mage, I'd rather have more small creatures than just 1 taunt. In a mage deck, I probably would value Fin Creeper more than I would value Booty Bay, just because Fin Creeper is most likely going to take 2 hits, while Booty Bay can basically just trade for 1. So we're probably going to go Dragonling Mechanic, and if we can get a Cult Master, we can get something to buff this. Can end up being really strong. So this is a very unfortunate choice because I love the Dark Iron Dwarf. I think it's very strong. However, the Amani Berserker is probably, arguably, the best 2-drop for mages. Situationally, however, basically you can self-ping it. So whatever, turn 2 or turn whatever, you play Zerker. If they were to coin and play something big with like 4 or 5 health, you can ping your own guy, and you basically trade 1 card for 1. You trade a 2 value for a 4 value or whatever. Can be really strong. Dwarf can do similar things as well, but then you lose the Battle Cry, and it's a 4/4 for 4, so it's still solid. But Zerkers, I could build, if I could get like a couple AoEs and then like 5 Zerkers, I'd probably do it. So definitely, I don't really like Spiteful Smith. I honestly don't even really care for it in weapon decks. I think by turn 5, you generally need more than 4 damage. It's a solid card. I mean, it's 4/4. I'd probably maybe even like it better if it was a 5/5 for 5. Just kind of rotate the stats around a little bit. The Enrage doesn't really do much for me. So we're basically between Loot Hoarder and Mirror Entity. Again, not being a huge fan of Secrets. Secrets can be strong if you're basically making them top deck, because if they're top decking, they essentially don't have a choice in what they're playing, and they're basically kind of playing on desperation to maybe top deck something, which if you're already ahead of them and making them top deck, you probably should be winning anyways, and you should be able to kind of control your cards a little bit to stay in the lead. So I kind of like the draw power in Loot Hoarder. That's generally one of the drawbacks to mage decks, is they don't have enough draw power. So I think Loot Hoarder can be really strong. So another tough choice. Kirin Tor is a solid 3-drop. It's a 4/3 for 3. Whether you actually play a secret or not doesn't really matter. If you play this with like the Mirror Image, that can actually be a really strong combo, because whatever they're going to play to get rid of this, you're essentially going to get a copy of it as well. So that can be a strong play. However, I love Defender of Argus, especially with like Mechanic. If you play Mechanic and then followed by Argus, you've got a 3/5 and then a 3/2. Overall, we currently don't have many spells. We got 2 spells. So Violet Teacher doesn't help us that much. Being a 3/5 is solid, but giving your other creatures, buffing your other creatures, and giving them taunt. Taunt really doesn't matter. The buffing is what's huge. So you could play that kind of whenever. If we get some more 3-drops, especially if we can get a Worgen. Worgen, again, is probably one of the better 3-drops for mages as well, because, again, you can self-ping it. Making a Worgen a 4/4 can be really strong. Overall, Kirin Tor is a solid card, but I value Argus pretty highly. Depending on who we're playing against, some of these cards can be better than others. Murloc, definitely pretty much wasted. We have no Murlocs. Priestess as a 1/2 could end up being a lot stronger than a 2/1. Problem is it dies to any AoE at all. Gets pinged, gets sacked, dies to really anything, which is unfortunate. So that kind of sucks. However, Imp Master is good as well. Getting a lot of creatures out. If you can get a Cult Master or something, sacking a lot of things, or if you can get a Ghoul, that can end up being pretty strong. And we don't have any real 3-drops yet, so we'll go ahead and pick that up. If it was late game and I had a pretty solid deck all around, I might consider picking up the Priestess. But overall, it's a pretty weak card, mainly because it doesn't live long enough to be useful. If it had more health, it could end up being a lot more useful card. Alright. So, Harpy's not that great. War Golem's not a bad card. Essentially, if you look at the difference, this basically gets 1 more damage in theory if you're hitting the hero. But it's got 2 less health. War Golem's a solid 7. I'd probably rather have, out of these 2 cards, if you had a third choice like a Boulderfist Ogre, Boulderfist Ogre would be kind of the choice out of those 3 cards, because Boulderfist Ogre is a 6/7, so you're only getting 1 more damage by playing this Golem. I think we're going to end up playing the Wolf Rider here. It's got a lot more utility, it's got a lot more value. We can still get bigger cards. I could end up getting a Stormwind Champion or something later on. I could end up getting some other big cards, so we'll pick up the Wolf Rider. So we can use a second Venture Co. Could get pretty nasty. However, you can almost never pass up on Fireballs. If they play a Venture Co, I can Fireball it. Fireball is after Flame Strike. I'd probably rate Fireball second. I'd probably even rate Fireball above Blizzard, which is kind of shocking to say. I think Fireball is, if you've got Flame Strikes, then Fireball is your kind of next bet. I like Fireball definitely better than Polymorph. There's Polymorph. It's not bad to have 1 Polymorph. Polymorph is great for getting rid of Death Rattle cards that you don't want to deal with or can't deal with. I think Poly's an okay spell. The problem with Poly is it doesn't clear the board. So if you're playing a Paladin or something, or playing something, it still basically lives, while Fireball is the same cost and will pretty much kill anything, up to, obviously a certain limit. But there are very few cards in the game that have more than 7 health. I say 7 because you can Fireball and then ping, which kills just about anything. While Poly, you're fairly likely to use a Fireball turn 4 to 5, maybe, if you've got something you just really need to get rid of and need to take control of the board, while Poly still leaves it alive on the board to let trade or whatnot. So I'm probably going to go Silverhand Knight. It's a very strong, especially Silverhand Knight, again, paired with Argus or some of these other cards, can bring a lot of value. So I'm going to skip the first Polymorph. We'll see if we get any more later on, but overall I think Polymorph is good, but we kind of need a little bit of mobby creatures, and Silverhand Knight's very solid to pick up. Best type of Mage deck to play against a Priest. Cards that you can mob, like Silverhand Knight, because that's not really mind control value. Things that having a counterspell or a spellbender is great against Priests because they can't mind control it. I'm going to run in the restroom real quick. I'm most likely going to pick up a second Sorcerer's Apprentice. I do like Ogre here, but unfortunately Arena can really be more beneficial to play fairly rushy, and Sorcerer's Apprentice is a very solid card because it lets me play some of these other cards faster than I normally would. Frostbolt, turn 3 Sorcerer's Apprentice with Frostbolt keeping the board. So I'm going to be right back.
AdvanceAutoParts.com. We'll sell you parts and deliver them straight to your door. But do we stop there? Well, technically, yes. We don't come inside your house or anything, but we do keep going. metaphorically. Because when you spend $75 or more, that delivery is absolutely free. Great deals, great parts, and free delivery. All at advancedautoparts.com. One more way. Service is our best part. Seaside Purchase.
And we're back. Alright, so we don't have anything 6 or higher yet. However, 1, 2, 3. We only have 3 2s. This is a very solid 2-drop. There are decent odds we could get something fairly large, just like this later on. And Venture is basically the equivalent of that. Arcane Explosion is a pretty weak card. I like it worse than I like, or less than I like Cone of Cold. I actually really like Cone of Cold. I think this is one of the weaker AoEs. Its only use is really killing Blood Imps and ones, but so we'll pick up the Apprentice. So, a couple choices here. Probably going to go Arcane Missiles just for the early game. Play Sorcerer's Apprentice. Essentially, you can play that for free, possibly kill something off. Turn 4, you can play Sorcerer's Apprentice, Arcane Missiles, ping. Most likely can kill off something with 2 or even maybe even 3 damage. Iceberry is a pretty weak one. It basically gives you 8 health. Only good if they're basically trying to YOLO you and ignore all your creatures and burn you down right at the last minute. Overall, that's not really a strong play. So, Spiteful Smith is an okay 5-drop on a mage. The enrage doesn't really matter. It still would be fairly solid just for the stats alone. It's fairly hard to kill, but I'd rather go missiles all day. This is like a it's like bomber, but not as bad. Well, it only hits enemies. So Ice Lance is a very bad card. It could be good and constructed. Most of the time, you're going to have to trade 2 for 1. Freezing something really isn't beneficial for the most part. And if it is, it's only beneficial for 1 turn. So the real damage is they're doing 4 damage if it's frozen for 1 cost. But then you need Cone of Cold or Blizzard or something like that paired with it. And then you're basically 2 for 1ing. So you're basically using 2 cards to kill 1 card, which again isn't really beneficial. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 spells. So Mana Worm can be efficient, can end up being pretty decent. I might end up picking it up. Fin Creeper is good. I feel like we kind of are going to end up playing this fairly rushy and playing Venture kind of late on. This can get out of control and be very hard to deal with. We do have some Sorcerer's Apprentice, so we can get some cheap spells out. So we're probably going to pick Mana Worm. Kind of having a top-heavy deck. I kind of like the Stair Step a little bit versus the Mountain. You know, if you think of Stair Step starting and then going down versus the Bell Curve. Bell Curve kind of benefits a more even game, like you want to go for a mid game, while the Stair Step down is kind of an aggro deck. I kind of like the aggro deck, so then they basically have to play a lot of creatures to counter my creatures. Hopefully at that point I'd have like a Flame Strike or something. So Murloc, not good. Abusive Sergeant's not a bad card. The thing with Abusive Sergeant, it's essentially removal, because you can play this on something very small, like a Loot Hoarder, make this a 4-1, sack your 4-1 into something else. The problem is then you're sitting with a 2-1 on the board that doesn't really do much for you. I really like Archmage quite a bit. So far we honestly don't have very many spells though, but talking before about the Smith, that's a 4-6 for 5. This is a 4-7 for 1 extra cost, but it also gives you spell damage. So that can be beneficial, even if you don't have the spell damage, like spells needed. It really still can be beneficial to you. It's got a lot of health, got good armor. This lives against Boulder Fist, while the other one would die and still not trade. So we'll go and pick up Archmage. So I'm not a big fan of Arcane Intellect. I don't think Arcane Intellect is a very good card. Frostwolf can be good, especially like with an Imp Master. You could get Frostwolf really big pretty quickly and pretty easily. However, Gurubashi is probably one of the best. Well, I won't say it's one of the best mage cards, because It dies to a lot of things and gets, if it's silenced, it basically becomes worthless. However, this card can get huge with self-pinging. You can basically ping it yourself and then hit for really hard. So this card does become very dangerous. Here, I'm going to bump the stream real quick. Let's see. I made a snarky repost. This is definitely not something that will gain me viewers, but I didn't sleep much yesterday, so I'm having a little more fun with things. Alright, so 1 missiles. We're probably going to pick up Cone of Cold. We don't have one. I really like Frostwolf again. Frostwolf is not as strong though in a mage deck because you're not usually going to have a lot of creatures out. So we'll go Cone of Cold. Arcane Missiles can be good, especially paired with the Sorcerer's Apprentices, but Cone of Cold is too good. So I don't actually expect Drake to get real big because we do have pretty early game. Drake can be a strong card still, but I think I'd rather have Demolisher with some of this removal I have and basically freezing cards to be able to let Demolisher kind of shoot off. Secret Creeper is a very poor card. You've got 1 secret, but even then, even if you have a lot of secrets, it's only getting +1/+1, which an early silence like really essentially gets rid of it. So I do like Drake quite a bit. The only problem with Drake is I don't feel like we'll get much value out of it because I think we're going to be basically spamming a lot of cards, and at the moment we have only 1 card that's going to draw us cards, so we have very little draw power to build up our deck to make this pretty big. So I think Demolisher is kind of the safer bet and gives us more of a curve. However, Drake is really strong, but it's not as strong as it used to be. So we'll go Demolisher. Especially given some of this Cone of Cold. If we can keep up some of this Cone of Cold, if we get more of that, more removal early on, that can be really strong. So we actually have a tough choice here as well. I like Water Elemental. I'm probably going to pick up Acolyte and a Mage because it's going to give me more draw power. It's going to let me bring more cards out. I like Elemental. Elemental doesn't kill a lot of things though that are 4s because a lot of 4s have at least 4 health. So that sucks a little bit. I think I would like this card much better if it was a 4/5. However, it's got good utility because of the freeze, but if you're not playing something that has weapons, that benefit's not as strong. Sorry, I'm seeing if the football game's on. Alright. So, we're going to go pick an Acolyte just to be able to self-ping our own guy. So, I really don't like either of these choices. Essentially, we could play Corehound and then try and keep it alive with spells. At the moment, we really don't have many spells to do it for us. So I think we'd rather have Rocketeer. Rocketeer is essentially a 5 damage spell that costs 6 mana. I call it a spell because really anything you're going to be hitting into it, unless it's the hero, is going to kill it. So that really doesn't end up benefiting you too much beyond this being just a spell, an expensive spell at that. The problem is Corehound dies too easily, and might not even get to use its might not even get to attack. So at least you get to use this on the same turn and attack with it there. And Shield Bearer's very poor. It's not a good card at all. I guess you could use it with the Sorcerer's Apprentice to somehow try and keep those alive with a cheap taunt, but overall, you know, these are going to be more valuable. This would be more valuable than the Shield Bearer would early on, and that gives us a little more curve late game to kill some stuff off. So another tough choice. We've not seen a single Flame Strike or Blizzard. We do have one Cone of Cold, which is nice. This is a fairly tough choice. Right now, we don't really have any what I would call game-winning cards. Venture Co. could be that. One Fireball wouldn't do it for us. If we could pair Imp Master with Ghoul, if we even pair Imp Master with a Acolyte, or not Acolyte of Pain, a Cult Master, that could end up doing it for us. It's got strong creatures, but being a mage, we don't really have very many mage-centric cards. So Frostbolt could be that for us, giving us a second one to have some removal. But I think I actually want to go Ghoul to pair it with the Imp Master and some of these other cards. Especially if we get a Flame Strike, play Ghoul with Flame Strike and whatnot. That's a tough call though. Just given where my curve is at. I need more removal though, that's the problem. As much as I want to pick up Ghoul, I really do need more removal. So I'm probably going to have to pick up Frostbolt, even though I'd rather... So we got 7 draws left. Screw it. We're gonna go Ghoul, even though Frostbolt is the better pick here, but we're basically rolling the dice, hoping that we get some form of AoE coming later. This isn't it. Ice Lance doesn't really do it for us with Cone of Cold and Frostbolt. While it can do that extra damage, it's not really worth it. I'd rather have a 3-2 to play on turn 2 and put a lot of early game pressure. Again, a Mana Worm or a Sorcerer's Apprentice. We really don't have that many spells, so we're probably going to get a second or a third Sorcerer's Apprentice. Ogre Magi does help our curve a little bit. However, again, we don't have many spells. So this is 1 less damage than this is, and this costs 2 more. So Sorcerer's Apprentice, we're basically going to play early on. We're going to stack it. We're going to stack the deck pretty heavy early game. We're going to basically rush as hard as we can. We've got fireballs if we need them. We've got some board control with multiple creatures out, and then we've got a strong finisher with Rocketeer, Venture Co., Fireball, Wolf Rider. So it's pretty much a super aggro deck so far. There's a Dwarf to give us a solid 4, give some extra damage to something that's alive. Can even make Acolyte a 3-3, which actually makes it a decent card, and still draws. Infiltrator's too weak. Being a 2-1, it dies to any AoE, but even if it doesn't die, it really only does 2 damage. The Stealth Panther is much better than this. This is an okay card for turn 1, however, if they're smart, if you play that turn 1, turn 2, they're not going to play something with only 2 health. They'll play something with 3 health. They'll play like 2-3 or something. So Dwarf's definitely our strongest pick there. Gives us some removal. Finally get a Blizzard. So we got 2 draws left after this one. Get our first AoE. So that's good. So at this point we kind of want to round out our curve. I don't feel like Thrallmar Foreseer is a very strong 3. I'd much rather have a Worgen pretty much any day of the week. However, if we did get Farseer with Dwarf, that can be pretty strong, making that a 4-3 with Wind Fury. However, that combo, there's only a couple. These 2 cards with both combo with it, making it a 3-4 or a 4-3 can be good. I think we're actually going to go Snapjaw though to kind of even out our curve a little bit. We do have quite a few 2s. We've got a decent amount of 3s, so we'll kind of get some more 4s to have kind of a early mid-game deck. And Goldshire Footman is really terrible, so it's definitely not worth picking up. So, and this is a 1 card, so we have very few cards that have 4 or more health. So any kind of AoE, we run into another Mage, run into something that's got this lives against Fireball, lives against Flame Strike, so it ends up coming on pretty strong. Not working right. Okay, thanks, man. Why is it not working? Let's see real quick. Let's go ahead and pick Snapjaw. Ooh, hello. So basically now we can go YOLO. So I'm logged in there. Let me try. Over here where I'm not logged in. So does it do nothing, or what does it do whenever? Huh, seems to be working for me. So is this the link that it shows up? Shows the header. Is that the link that the taskbar shows up top, or the? This is a tough choice because we have very little removal. So I really like Big Game Hunter, but against in a Mage deck, in the deck that I'm building, we're really going to have to go Pyro because we're basically going to go YOLO. So that's a solid finisher though, Pyro. I'm not sure how to